Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at what was your we need to leave now moments. Yeah, let's just get right into the video. I was traveling alone in Bangkok, taking a tuk-tuk open air taxi somewhere. A common scam I'd been warned of was for drivers to make a stop somewhere and basically lock you in a shop until you bribe your way out. My driver started asking if I was doing any shopping and suggested we stop at his cousin's store. No thanks. He starts begging, please, you really like this store. More empathetically, no thanks, take me to my destination. He says we're just gonna stop there quickly on the way. So I just waited until he stopped at a red light and then got out and walked away. He was screaming at me to come back, but he can't exactly leave his tuk-tuk in busy traffic. Nuh-uh, sister, don't play those games. Good, she followed her gut feelings. That is kind of scary. What if they just never let you out? What if they actually just kidnap you forever? You literally get in a taxi and they'll just bring you to a store and they'll lock you in there until you pay your way out? Hell no. Several years ago, we had a bit of a flood during spring after a period of intense rain and rapid snowmelt. Me and my dad were on one of our favorite nature trails when we observed a river that had formed alongside the path and carved out a ravine. Across the ravine, I could see a large tree had fallen after the ground beneath its roots had been washed away. There was another large tree along the bank that looked very vulnerable as its roots were already becoming exposed. I commented that it would likely fall before the day was over. We stood there for a few seconds longer and I was fixated on the tree swaying from side to side. Then the tree suddenly went still and I had this absolute primal fear take over and started screaming to run. As we fled, I could hear it come crashing down. It struck exactly where we had been standing. Later I learned that large objects falling towards you don't often appear to be moving. I'm certain that the tree must have already been falling and I had some sort of subconscious awareness of it. That's pretty true, hey, because sometimes trees take a while to fall and when they're falling at you, it just looks like it's just staying still unless you're looking from the side. But if you're like directly under the tree, you wouldn't know. Whew. They just escaped death. Husband, then boyfriend, and I were living in Oakland at the time and were catching a Sunday evening BART train from the Fruitvale station into the city for a concert. While we were waiting on the platform, noticed two shady looking dudes scoping us out. One appeared to be signaling to a third guy standing alone a long way down the platform. When the train pulled up, we stopped onto the car directly in front of us and sat down in the front row, immediately besides the two ADA seats that face the doors, open area in the center of the car. Shady dude and his buddy gets into the same car shortly after us, even though they've been standing closer to another car. Shady dude sits down in the ADA seat directly beside me, his knees nearly touching mine, on a near empty train. His buddy sits down in the second row of seats, immediately behind my husband. Already the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up and my cortisol levels are spiking, but I try to talk myself down internally and tell myself I'm just being paranoid. Moments later, the third guy I suspect the shady dude had been signaling to, who had been standing way down the platform, stepped onto the same car but remained standing and started looking up and down in the car in both directions like he was assessing the other passengers. In a split second of panic, I placed my hand firmly on my husband's knee, turned to him and looked him square in the eye and said, quietly but firmly, we need to get off this train now. Bless his heart, to this day, he didn't hesitate or question me for even a second. We stood immediately and walked briskly through the train's car doors, only a second or two before they shut behind us, so close. If there were any doubts remaining in my mind, they were immediately erased when the shady dude instantly sprung out of his seat and came charging towards the closed doors as the train began to pull away, making eye contact with me the whole time, and then proceeded to walk down the center aisle of the train car as it pulled away, keeping pace with us and continuing to lock eyes with me for the next few eternally long seconds until the train accelerated down the platform. That's so creepy. As if still to like intimidate them. Wow. I'll be paranoid the rest of my life when I catch a train. And I'm just so glad that her husband listened. He wasn't like, you're just being paranoid. You know, it's fine. It's fine. Nope, he listened. I love that. Not me, but my mother. I was 18 months and she was heavily pregnant with my sister at the time. Our washing machine had been playing up and my mum was holding me as she went to see how the laundry was going. She opened the door and the floor was covered in water. Not enough to flood into the hall, but had formed a big puddle. My mum, with me in her arms and heavily pregnant, said she went to step through the water and see what was going on, but something in her mind told her to stop. She closed the door and called the plumber. The plumber arrived and called an electrician who immediately turned off all power. The wiring had shorted and there was a live wire sitting in the water puddle. Had my mother stepped in it bare feet too, this was Australia, she would have been stepping in enough voltage to kill her, and I guess me, as I was in her arms. There was nothing odd about the water, other than it being all over the laundry floor, but I'm glad my mother followed her instincts and didn't step in it. Good! Yeah, things like this, just call someone to fix it. Seriously. It's not It's not worth it to try to fix it yourself. About 2 months ago, I'd stayed up past my usual bedtime, and as soon as I got in bed, I smelled something odd and was hearing some inconsistent banging and clattering from downstairs. I don't live in a great neighborhood, so none of this was unusual, but I got out of bed to check anyway and saw flames licking up the side of the building. Yelled at my wife to get out of bed and threw on some clothes, and we hightailed it out. Our building has a shared wall with the next, and that one had an apartment on the ground floor fully engulfed by the time we made it outside. Ended up condemning the whole building. I was the first one to call 911. Have been jerking myself awake in the night pretty consistently since then. What the heck? There's no smoke detectors? No smoke alarms? Nothing? Literally the building was on fire but nobody knew? How? Or was it because it was the next building and then their building just started to light up because it was so close? Jeez. Well, I'm glad they got out safely. When my daughter was in 3rd grade, she came home talking about a new friend she had at school called Sally. It was Sally this and Sally that for weeks. Towards the end of the term, she came home and said that Sally was having an end of the year performance at a church, and she asked if we wanted to go watch it. We thought, why not? We went to the church to watch it, and almost as soon as we walked in the door, we regretted it. It was in a warehouse number 1, plus someone was clearly assigned to recruit us. We had a woman named Morgan who stuck to us for the whole time, and we were there and kept speaking about the church and the church's beliefs. We were shown introduction videos for the church and finally were shuffled into a room for a family photo. At this point, my husband and I were clutching our kids and basically ran to the nearest store and to our car to exit. It was a cult? What the frick? Where did Sally go? Was Sally actually her friend? So like her parents taught Sally to like recruit people? That's crazy. That's messed up. When I was a kid, I saw a guy pushing his broken down car, so I gave him a hand to push it. He then proceeded to smash the grill open with a screwdriver to get the bonnet open, and that is when I realized I was helping a car thief. Got out of there real quick. Yo! Imagine what the thief was thinking. The thief was like, thank you, boy. That's crazy. Thinking you're doing a good deed, but you're just committing a crime. My cat was lying on the shoulder like normal. Out of nowhere, he bit me and ran to the bedroom door. I was confused and a little upset. Opened the door, smelled smoke. Microwave was on fire. What a good kitty. Seriously, cats are freaking smart. Okay? They're so smart. I was alone and driving to work in my Dodge Omni. Suddenly started feeling sleepy and dizzy and a tad bit sick. I realized just in time, after almost nodding off twice, that I was huffing exhaust fumes because my exhaust pipe broke directly under where I was sitting. I immediately had to pull over and get out and call my parents to take me the rest of the way to work while they towed my car. I still think about how many ways that could have ended very, very badly. What the heck? That's so scary. And they still went back to work. Oh, they almost died and they still had to go to work. What a sad world we live in. My friend and I were about 16 years old. We went to a party and she got super drunk and passed out in a bed. I went and laid down next to her. Then the guy friend came in and told us it's all good and I could leave. I dragged her out of there by her arms and called her parents to come get us. Oh hell no, what do you mean I can leave? I'm leaving with her if I'm leaving. Jeez. I swear, some people are just so sus. Disgusting. Last year, I called Lyft to pick me up from a bar. The car shows up and it matches the car on the app. I said the driver's name and he said it was him. Before I got in, I went around the back to check the license plate. It did not match the app. I told the driver his plate didn't match and he told me to get in anyways. I said absolutely not and he sped off incredibly fast. What? So it was just the same car coincidentally? I mean, she should have said his name. She should have been like, what's your name? And let him answer. Seriously, that's the first mistake she made. But so good that she checked the license plate to be safe. Something was warning her for sure. I was around 7 and my cousin was my very best friend. We lived in the same city and had sleepovers on a regular. I had never not wanted to stay at her place. But one, when my parents were standing in the door saying bye, I started bawling and saying I wanted to sleep at home tonight. They tried to convince me to stay and have fun, but I was insistent. Note, I had a filled medium-sized aquarium in my bedroom that I loved. Anyways, I went to bed like normal but woke up at around 3 a.m. I rolled over and the wall my aquarium was against was on fire. Pretty much the entire wall. I ran across the hall to my parents' room, woke them up and they put it out before it spread further. Turns out a pebble had been sucked up into the filter and jammed it, causing the overheat and started a fire at the wall socket. All my fish died, which I was really sad about, but my parents are convinced I saved our house and maybe their lives that night. The smoke alarm would have not gone off till most of my room and engulfed, and at that point there would have been nothing they could do. They saved the parents' lives because if they weren't home, their room would have been on fire and the house would have been on fire and the parents would still be asleep. Ooh, what a close call. That's crazy that she would have always stayed over at a cousin's place, but that day she started crying. Whoa. Well, that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me in the comments down below what your thoughts are. And as always, thanks for watching. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!